Good morning and welcome to Creekside Online and Happy New Year! I just want to start off the new year by saying I love you guys and I'm so glad that we still get to be together in some capacity. I'm also still so excited when I think about the awesome Christmas event that we just had at Creekside. We got to love and serve the community around us as well as each other and celebrate Christmas together. I'm also so excited for some of the awesome things that we have coming in the new year that we will let you know about in a few weeks. So 2021 is a new year and a chance for us to reset in some ways. A lot of us like to press a reset button when we start a new year and try to start over. While we can't exactly start over because we'll be in some of the same situations that we have been in, we can approach them very differently. For me, when I make New Year's resolutions, I usually think about how I can change or better myself. But I often don't incorporate Jesus into my New Year's resolutions. And as I was reflecting on that this week, I was a little shocked and confused on why I'd never done that before and why that connection was never made. But as I've been thinking about New Year's resolutions and what a great New Year's resolution could be for 2021, I was thinking about how I want to incorporate Jesus into my New Year's resolutions. And as I thought about that, that meant loving others more. And we strive to love others every day, but we don't often challenge ourselves to love others who are difficult or those who might need more love than we're willing to give at certain times. But I want us all to think about what would 2021 look like if we changed our perspective and our attitudes. Instead of trying to make resolutions about ourselves, make resolutions about loving others better and knowing Jesus more. Let's join Doug and hear what he has for us this morning.
Hey, Creekside, how are you guys doing? Let's praise our Lord together. This song is called We Praise You. Join us and sing with us. Let praise be a weapon that silences the enemy. Let praise be a weapon that conquers all anxiety. This is what freedom feels like. This is what heaven sounds like. We praise you. We come on. This is what living looks like. This is what freedom feels like. This is what heaven sounds like. We praise you. We praise you. This is what living looks like. This is what freedom feels like. This is what heaven sounds like. We praise you. We pray. We'll see you break down every wall. We'll watch the giants fall. But fear cannot survive when we praise you. The God of breakthroughs on our side, forever lifting high. With all creation cry, God we pray. Come on, one more time. We'll see you break down every wall. We'll watch the giants fall. Fear cannot survive when we praise you. The God of breakthroughs on our side, forever lifted high. With all creation cry, God we praise you. Whoa, we praise you. Whoa, we praise you. Whoa, we praise you. We praise you.
Well, Happy New Year, I think is the appropriate thing to say this morning. It's fascinating. I know so many people, you see it on the news all the time. Maybe you have said the same thing. I've thought this, but driven it out of my head pretty quickly. But, we just got to get 2020 behind us. And, so much of what we talk about following Christ is to never think like that. The world decays, but the kingdom moves forward no matter what. Jesus has been advancing his kingdom since he came, quite frankly. And 2020 is literally no obstacle to him. And it doesn't matter because 2021 is pretty much the same thing as 2020 right now. So that's an easy transition, I think, for all of us. But I just hope this year we remember that I heard this great statement from a pastor recently. Everything that we have in life is a gift. It's not a right. Everything we have in life is a gift, not a right. And we need to think that way. It's not that we deserve to be able to eat in restaurants. It's not that we deserve to, be able to congregate or meet or all these things. We want to, but they're not a right. They're a gift. And so whatever we have, we thank God for it. And we drop the expectation of everything else. We are continuing in the series, the 10 learnings from a lifetime of living that I've been doing. We did 5 in December, and we'll do 5 more here in January. Excuse me, we're in week 6. And really, as I've been saying all along, these are core values that we've discussed many, many times since I've been the lead pastor these last 9 years at Creekside. So really, these are practices and truths that we hold dear at Creekside. They're things that I think are required to be an apprentice of Christ. Just to review and for 30 seconds, week 1 was gratitude, this idea that we thank the Creator by enjoying our life. Week 2 was on brokenness, staying present to who we really are before God and others, warts and all. Week 3 on empathy, the ability and willingness to place your mind and heart and body and the soul into the heart and mind and body and soul of another while you stay on your side of the room. We're not fixing things with empathy. We're placing ourselves where they are. And then the next week, week 4, what's built on that, which is where we move from our side of the room, not to fix, but to absorb the pain of others, or what we call here at Creekside, setting the chair upright. And then the week before Christmas, with that incredible interview of Jeff Klipnis, it's the art of failing, right? This passionately living in Jesus' freedom where there is no failure. As Jeff said, failure doesn't have a period after it. Failure is actually opportunity in the hands of Christ. This morning we move into our 6th kind of learning in my lifetime, which is the massive gift of blessing others. And unfortunately, the flip side of that same coin, the incredible drain of a curse. I wrote this message actually several weeks ago from what you're listening to, but current to me actually recording this. And I had a hard week that week, a really hard week, and I had a great week that week. And I don't know if you have times like that, but that can surely be kind of typical, I think, in our lives. But it was really hard on several occasions and just insanely beautiful all at the same time. Over the weekend, Lynn and I were just not seeing eye to eye, and we had kind of 3 different instances that ended up getting kind of, I don't know if you have this, you have one instance which was completely my fault, and someday you can ask me, Doug, what did you do? It was really ridiculous. But completely stupid and wrong. And so that kind of didn't go well. And then 2 other things happened that kind of got merged into that, which really shouldn't have been. And it just took us throughout the weekend to work it out. So I was already a little worn down by Monday. And then Monday morning, I get up and I check my email, and I have an email, and it wasn't a harsh email, but it was definitely letting me know there's another direction that I should be taking, and would be better for all of you, quite frankly, so you can guess what that might be. And then someone passed along some information to me on top of that someone at the church did something that wasn't, quite frankly, the nicest, most kind, honoring thing in the world. And then a good friend called me, and I had heard their feelings, and subsequently in that conversation, I got my feelings hurt, and this good friend of mine and I had to work that out, and it was tough on both of us, but super beautiful between the 2 of us. But these tough conversations, they take it out of you. And then after all of that, I had miscalculated, and I thought, okay, because I'm very driven, and I'm very organized, and I write messages 4 to 6 weeks to 8 weeks ahead of time. And I thought, okay, I just got to pace myself. I want Jonathan and Jordan to have the week off after Christmas to do nothing with this. I just got to get the first 5 sermons done and recorded, and the interviews, and all this stuff. And then I realized, and I looked at my calendar during this tough week, like, oh my gosh, you big dummy. I needed to do a 6th one because January 3rd was going to come very quickly. And so in order to do that, I just kind of had to pull myself back together. So I had to re-up the energy and re-up the time and rework out my schedule so I could study and press and write what you're going to hear this morning. And what happens in these times, and what happened with me, is our lovely adversary, the enemy, took all of these kind of little teeny piles of snow and made a giant snowball, or at least attempted to chuck it at me. And he tossed 2 statements at me that, quite frankly, are not effective with me anymore. They used to be decades ago. They really have they have no bearing on me now, which is cool, and I'll talk about why. But they're indicators to me when they are even allowed to kind of seep in for 5 seconds, that I'm getting tired and I'm hurting a little bit, and I need to draw into the presence of the Trinity. And the 2 statements that come at me very infrequently, but typically during this time, are, first of all, I'm in a winless situation, and second of all, what a thankless job. Right? I'm not sure if you ever feel that way. I would guess you have many times in your life. We all, I think, get there at times. And here's the reason I think they're extremely silly questions. Because A, our call is not to win in following Christ. It's actually to lose on behalf of the world. And second of all, we're not serving Jesus to be thanked. Right? We just want to be faithful. And that's, to me, why they're really just dumb questions and dumb statements. But we all get down. We all get tired. We can all feel poured out at times. And we all wonder from time to time if what we're doing actually matters, if our life actually counts for something. And at the end of the day, to me, it's that scene that is so powerful. I don't think just for men, I think for men and women, but I know it's powerful in the men in my life. It's that scene at the end of Private Ryan, where they're in the cemetery, and he looks at his wife and he says, "Have I been a good man? Has my life mattered? Have I been faithful to Jesus?" I would add. And then when life was doing its best during this time to kind of poop on me, like it's prone to do to all of us, remember the last talk we did was that life is broken, and not only does life not work, life actually works against us on a daily basis. In the middle of that small tornado, I was blessed. Sweet Jody, who's just an amazing gal, sent Greg Armstrong and I an email after the talk and interview we did on empathy, thanking us for the message that we did, how this talk on empathy affected her, helped her, encouraged her, and she even used it with a family member to stay on her side of the room, and it caused this conversation to go way better. And she just poured blessing on Greg and I. And then another day later, my good friend Steve Wren, who used to go to church in our church and moved probably a dozen years ago to Colorado. He's a district attorney. He called me to thank me for the message I did with Doug Abbott on absorbing the pain for others, and told me how it had impacted him, even though he's doesn't even go to our church, but he still follows, listens to all the messages. And he told me, even though I haven't lived here, Doug, for over a decade, you always have been and always will be my pastor and his family's pastor. And that was just like, it was just so touching to me. Not something I expect, not something I look for, not something I even would say need to hear, but what a blessing from him. And then his beautiful wife, Jen, sent Lynn and I an email thanking us for something that we had done not too long ago, and then just blossomed into how much we've meant to her over the years. And they knew nothing about the week I was having, of course, right? Which is so Jesus to do this. And suddenly, in this tough week, problems? What problems, right? Attacks? What attacks, right? Tired and worn down anymore? Absolutely not. Why? Because I was blessed by somebody. This word blessing, it's a really simple word. Kimberly Grassi and I were talking about it a little bit. I go to her for Hebrew kind of questions and Greek questions. And really it just means to declare favor and goodness upon another person. It's not rocket science. It's actually to just bless them, to speak favor to them like these people did in my life. There is so little to me in life that carries the weight of being blessed, particularly verbally, by another person. And there is so little in life that is more defining, and I want you to hear this, of our maturity in Christ than to be a person that knows what it means to bless others and not curse them. This book I've quoted several times, and it's called Sacred Fire by Ronald Rolheiser. He had this to say, and I'm going to quote this book probably, I think, 3 times in this message. He said this: "We are mature when we define ourselves by what we are for rather than what we are against. The capacity to praise more than to criticize defines our maturity." Man, do I hope you heard that. We all know the famous line, "Sticks and stones may break our bones, but names will never hurt us." That was spoken by someone in massive denial, in my opinion. I love what Jeff Klipnis said to me when I was asking him his thoughts on this message. He said this: this is so powerful. If spoken words weren't immensely powerful, then God would have simply thought up creation. Isn't that interesting? God spoke creation into being. Jesus is the Logos. Jesus is the Word, according to the first chapter of the Gospel of John. The Word, capital W. Jesus, the Word, used words literally to speak creation, all of creation, into being. Any evil pagan can tell you what they don't like. They can tell you what isn't working, what everyone should believe and think, how to fix the world. Any immature person can post to the world what they are against or what they don't like. But the real maturity, the real mature believer, the real disciple of Jesus is defined by what they are for, not what they're against, namely others and blessing others and those around them, bestowing favor and goodness on people to move them up and forward. Again, in Sacred Fire, Ronald Rolheiser says this: "The ultimate picture of maturity and generativity is not that of a warrior or a martyr dying for a cause, noble as that may be. Ultimate maturity is seen in the picture of a blessing elder, a grandmother, a grandfather, a parent, a teacher, a coach, a mentor, or anyone else with power and authority standing before the life and energy of the other, and like the Creator at the original creation, and like the Father at the baptism of Jesus, basking in that energy and saying, "It is good. It is good. In you I take delight." And that's the first thought I really want to make, is we are designed for receiving blessing and then subsequently blessing others. The Creator himself knows how deeply his creation needs this favor bestowed upon them. He looks upon creation. Jesus breathes creation into being, and what does he do? He blesses it. It is good. It is good. You are good, he says. He looks upon the Father, looks upon his Son, and he blesses him. On you I take delight. Remember that famous passage when Jacob wrestles with Jesus. They fight and they fight and they wrestle all night long, and Jacob will not let him go. Remember, Jesus touches his hip socket and puts it out of joint, but Jacob will not release him. Clearly, Jacob is asking for something beyond him, beyond what he can do fully for himself. The first time, if you remember with Jacob, he got a blessing from his dad, but he manipulated it out of his father. He stole his older brother's birthright and blessing. It cost him 20 years of hard labor with Laban and a fractured family. This blessing Jacob will do differently in this wrestling match. He will simply cling to God. He will seek what he knows he needs to sustain his own heart, to be blessed, right? And to just clarify this morning, again, what I mean by blessing in this context. By blessing, I'm not speaking so much of what Jacob stole from Esau, right, his older brother. That was about a birthright. That was about being the elder son and what came with that, almost like in a will. And I'm also not speaking of the blessing that Jacob bestowed on his 12 sons at his deathbed, which were really much more like prophetic statements than they were blessings. I'm talking about simply with our mouth and our eyes and our attention bestowing favor and goodness on the person next to you. We are designed for this external betrothal of favor from the Trinity. And to me, I think that's such a beautiful thought. The Logos, the Word, capital W, Jesus, speaks us into existence and then turns to us and asks us to be the extension, if you will, of that life-giving force through our words of blessing to others. Isn't that a cool thought? That Jesus breathes life into us and blessing, and then says, breathe that back on creation itself. And there is little that affects us more than when we receive it. Isn't it interesting? All those kind of little snowballs, if you will, that were pelting me with, none of those went away. None of those got changed. But somehow, someone bestowing favor on me, like Jody or Steve Wren or Jen Wren, it caused them to just fade into the background. And we all know what this feels like. There is so little that affects us more than when we receive it. It is woven all through the great story of God, bestowing favor and goodness on another so that they're uplifted and can carry forward. You remember in the first chapter of Joshua, Moses has just died. And Joshua is left with this massive problem. He's got a couple million people. He's on Mount Nebo. He's steering into a foreign land where the Canaanites are, which would become Israel. He has no way of crossing the Jordan River. He has no way of leading these people. He has no way of conquering even Jericho, let alone this whole country of Canaanites. He's left with an impossible task, wondering if he has what it takes. And what does God do? He blesses him. In the first chapter, as soon as Moses dies, he tells him he will give him every inch that his feet step on. I love what it says in Joshua 1, verse 6. Be strong and courageous, for you, Joshua, shall cause this people to inherit the land that I swore to their fathers to give them. In the book of Numbers, when God is forming his people in the desert, he has Moses bless Aaron so that Aaron can carry forward in that famous blessing in Numbers chapter 6. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace, he says. At the end of the epistle to the Romans that Paul wrote, Paul blesses this church to go on and the powerful words he gives them to live in harmony together. Paul thanks publicly God and blesses the churches in Corinth and Philippi and Colossae and Philemon and his household. Paul blesses the Ephesian church by reminding them that every blessing in the spiritual heavens is theirs in Christ. In 1 Peter, he reminds the churches of the great hope they have in the resurrection of Jesus. Over and over and over again in the grand narrative, God speaks blessing into our lives and shows us, his people, blessing one another, right? Speaking favor has such incredible power in our lives. And the opposite is equally true, which always seems to be the case. People that discourage, bring us low, cause our feet to feel heavy, cause us to question our very purpose. And you know what this is like, a tired person that cannot celebrate the success of another, the cynical adult, right? That looks at someone else's life, particularly those that are younger than them, and they say, who do they think they are? Or the kind of young snot nose, you have no idea what life is like, even though they're trying to find their own. A worn down parent that feels threatened by the maturing child that's starting to find their own strength and voice. The hardened individual that is so locked into their own experience and life experience and their life beliefs and what they believe that they cannot open their heart to another and instead mock the other person's thoughts and beliefs because they are not theirs. The manipulation of indirectly letting others know when they need course correcting because, of course, they presume that they know the right way to go better than the person next to them. None of us wants a life without special words and gestures that connect our life to a rich, deep, meaningful past and a promised, hopeful future. Left unblessed, we are left to our own resourcefulness to fabricate it upon ourselves. The curse, that's really what it is. It's not the blessing in neutrality. So much so often it's the blessing or the curse that we actually leave. We don't call it a curse when we do it, but that's exactly what it is. Just as nothing brings us as much joy into our lives or theirs as blessing others, nothing so depresses us, robs us, wears us down, causes us to question pressing forward than the cursing from another person. I love this statement in Sacred Fire. This to me is mind-boggling, and I want you to really hear this. He said this, when we act petty, we get to feel petty. When we act like God, we get to feel like God. Don't push this kind of insanely insightful comment aside because it sounds bizarre. We need to take this in absolutely deeply. I have just lingered on these two sentences for months. Notice he's not saying we become God. Rather, when we live out our life, the way God lives out his life, blessing those around us, bestowing favor, we get to feel what God feels in that process. We get to experience the joy and the passion that we were designed for. We get to be the life-giving force that the Trinity was at creation itself and continues to be in our life. We get to breathe life out as Jesus did at the beginning of creation. And second of all, we can only bless insofar as we have experienced our own blessing. When the enemy tried to kind of dart me during that week, with those two twisted truths, I can't win and what a thankless position, they didn't work at all because ultimately I have already received the blessing from my Heavenly Father. I am worth dying for to the Trinity. And Jesus stands as the pillar of my value and my worth to him, no matter what I do or don't do. And then when I do get down, and I know where my favor rests then, because it rests with him, when even then, when additional blessing comes my way, like it did through Jody and Steve and Jen, right? It is just this beautiful reminder to me of what I actually already have in Christ. Love and favor from God himself. And this allows me to then start overflowing onto others rather than to just feel down and destroyed. To listen then and to empathize, right? And to watch for chairs that are tipped over around me with the people around me and ask how I might be a blessing rather than a curse to them in that moment. I no longer need to try and get others to bless me because I am already blessed. Manipulating blessing is absolutely no blessing at all. Jacob found that out. It's cheap and we can feel it. We stole it rather than it was given to us. Likewise, others know when we are not blessing them sincerely. Jacob had to learn this, as I said, the hard way. After doing it wrong, Jacob did it right. He asked Jesus to bless him with favor. And an amazing thing happened, if you recall this in the story in Genesis. Jacob, the recipient of blessing, became the blessor. It's such a beautiful picture of how our faith is supposed to work. Jacob blessed the Pharaoh twice because he had experienced blessing at such a deep level. When the pattern of our lives has a tendency to discourage others, it is a clear indication we are not operating out of a blessed heart, but rather a void where hurt and anger reside, and we want somebody else to recognize it.
Hello.
Hey.
So I just want to establish this for the people listening. We walked in the studio, right?
Right.
And do you remember what your wife said? She said this to me. We were talking about people having dinner groups. And you said people have been to your dinner group and to my group, and they prefer your dinner group better. And so for me to interview on blessing others with words, I'm not sure this was the right way to start with me.
I also want to clarify, I didn't say that.
Oh, no, of course not.
Yeah,
Of course not.
yeah.
So Tim's here to speak about blessing, and you're going to speak about cursing. I think that's what it's going to be. Is that what we're going to do?
That's not very nice that you did that.
No, you're right. See, that's what cursing is, and I'm glad I could share that example. All right. Well, thanks for being here. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Let me just ask you a few questions, and you guys anybody can answer. It doesn't matter to me. But this is the first time we've done this kind of as a couple. Why? I mean, you've read. You heard or read the notes and kind of know some of the thoughts that were in the sermon on that we just went through, that the church just went through. Why do you think it's so important that we bless other people with our words?
Well, I think it's important because you want people to feel loved, appreciated, cared about, noticed. And
that's a big word, noticed.
Yeah, just because.
What does that mean to you, noticed?
Noticed?
Yeah. That's a really specific word.
Because there's a lot of times where it's easy to, I'm the type of person who will kind of fly under the radar. And so even though you have that kind of desire to be noticed, a lot of times it's easier just to blend in. But you do have that desire to be noticed or known and
by someone.
Yes.
Yeah. And so you want to impart that.
Definitely.
That's cool. That's really cool.
Yeah.
I interrupted you. Were you going to say more? Sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
Okay. Tim, do you have thoughts?
Yeah. I think it has a lot to do with helping someone see their own identity. It's not even that I would give someone their identity, even though they might receive it that way.
Right.
The words that I say to them, they will receive it as a potential identity, but it's being on one side to know that God actually has given us his identity,
A real
and-
personage.
exactly, and being able to speak that on purpose to someone else.
Yeah,
And-
in specific ways too.
Right. And sometimes something we were talking about with these thoughts earlier is that it's okay if that is not always in the forefront of my mind at the beginning of a conversation, because it may be something that has just become ingrained as part of who we are.
Yeah.
In our own
You mean blessing
identity.
somebody else. It's not
Exactly.
necessarily on your mind, but you're picking that up as you're in the conversation.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
right.
when you ask like why is it so important, I was just thinking, I don't know if I've ever thought like, oh, this is important to me, or this is like what I'm supposed to be doing
In a
It's-
moment.
Yeah, or even overall, like
Yeah.
it just kind of is, like Tim has said, ingrained in you, like
Well-
through life experience.
Right. So let's go there. Let's go to the life experience. Can you think of a time in your life where somebody noticed you and blessed you with their words? Can you think of a time? Because obviously, it's not something you're necessarily aware of all the time when you're in conversation with people, but you're very aware of it, actually, almost unconsciously, because it's obviously been imprinted upon you from your own past. That you just said that essentially. So can you think of a time that just stands out? Kind of like and this is a different example, but like Marion Armstrong had an idea, and Greg Armstrong, about empathy, and you were the person they thought of, Michelle, right? And you remember that very well. You're not going to highlight it because you don't want to highlight yourself. You want to go unnoticed again, obviously. The same thing with blessing. Can you think of an example that sticks out?
Yeah, I could think of a couple. One that probably first came to my mind was going through one of our losses, and just even before we found out, like when we found out our baby wasn't going to survive.
Can you say one of your losses?
One of our baby losses.
Yeah, and you had more than one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've had 5. And so
And a lot of people don't know that.
one of them we found out at the ultrasound, so I was about 17 weeks. And I remember a really good friend, when we told them, I think it was like the next day, he said that, or it was one of them or both of them that said, like, we spent the night like praying for you. And a lot of times you hear like, oh, I'll pray for you,
Yeah.
or yes, I'm praying. But
It's a little like, how are you?
yeah, but when somebody says like, I was praying for you through the night, that was huge. Like somebody
Yeah.
would be on their knees for me, or like going to God for me in the middle of the night.
And then to tell you that, to make
Yes.
sure you know it, not to make themselves look good, but to make sure that you realized the Trinity was there, and your friend was there with you.
That was huge.
Fascinating. That's really cool. How about you, Tim?
Yeah. My thought is a little bit different. It's when I was going to school, and I had a professor that I really respected, and he was really tough at the same time, and so I wasn't doing as well in his class grade wise as I did in other courses, simply because he expected something more. He was holding us to a higher standard, and so I remember struggling with that a little bit and wondering, because I respected him so much, what he must be thinking about me. And this is in
And you're 20? How old are you?
I was probably 24,
Okay.
25, going through Bible college. And
Yeah.
so I wanted him to respect me as well, because I respected him so much. And as we interacted through this course, and even over the phone, and I would tell him, hey, I'm struggling with some of these things, he always very, very prominently and very directly and just in such an honoring way, he would refer to me as pastor, which,
And you're in Bible college
and I'm in Bible college
and not pastoring.
and not pastoring in a great capacity of any kind. And so
And he was how old was he, would you guess?
oh, he was in his mid to late 60s at that point. And he would say, you know what, pastor? And he would talk to me that way. It definitely wasn't a place where I felt I was.
Right.
And by someone who I just admired so much,
Right.
was addressing me one-on-one as pastor.
Just to impart dignity to you.
Something that absolutely. To impart dignity to me, to impart, in a sense, living up to what
Yeah.
that is.
But no shame, no guilt.
No shame, no
Yeah.
guilt. Was just incredible to me.
Yeah.
It was a moment where I think he was speaking
Yeah, he's bestowing life upon you.
life. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Bestowing life.
That's a
Man, that's such a
great
great way to
story.
say it, but I'll never forget that.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
really cool. Well, how about the flip side? We remember pain well. I mean, can you think of and if it's me, then you got to come up with another story. But can you think of a time where you felt just the opposite? And I would use the word curse in this, but it's in the sense of the things that make us want to just quit or lay down or that rob us, that people have said.
Yeah, that probably comes easily. Those moments do.
Interesting. What do you mean
or
by
just
that?
somebody kind of putting you down or making you feel.
What do you mean by easily? Do you mean more
Well,
often?
because I think it's so much easier to recognize those moments than the blessing moments.
Yeah.
Because they take a lot more out of you.
Yeah.
And
And they happen more often too.
Yes.
On top of it.
I had worked at Domenico's for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
Close to a year, maybe. And it was the same day. And I remember like this day will always just like be in my mind. I think it's like the perfect job for like the perfect first job, because it really teaches you how to deal with people and how you should treat people, especially if you haven't worked customer service, then
Yeah, everybody should, right?
Yes, definitely. And so this one day I had gone in and it was busy. The line can be out the door sometimes, and I had served somebody, and what you do is you like make the sandwiches and you work with that same person all the way through, check them out. And as I rang the person up, the card reader wasn't working. She was not happy with me. Yeah. There was nothing I could do. So I was just trying to say, well, I have to do it like manually. There's nothing. And basically she was just angry with me, and I did not know how to do my job. And she had voiced something along those lines that I just didn't know what I was doing, and I'm an adult. I'm not like a kid. I'm not a teenager.
Right.
And so it was just so frustrating because it was something completely out of my control. I had nothing to do with, and it just really hurt me. And I think that
you're talking about it right now. That was the example that came to your mind.
Yes.
On this person that you've never seen again.
Yes. I have no idea what they look like.
Don't even know who. You wouldn't even recognize them if you saw them again.
No.
Wow.
The crazy thing is, and it's even like the flip side of that, probably within an hour, somebody else had come in, and so the next person just goes help. You always just go help the next person. So another server went to her and to take her order. She's like, oh no, that's okay. You could take them. I'm going to wait for her. talking about me. Because apparently
Right after this.
Yeah, apparently she's had me. I served her before and she really liked me. And so she wanted me to serve her again. Super sweet lady and kind. And then she leaves. And it's still not like you felt, oh, okay, that made my day. It was very helpful in the moment, especially after how I was just treated. But that mistreatment far outweighed the blessing.
Wow. So what is that? What do we do with that? I mean, what does that say to us as followers of Christ? I mean, you had two powerful instances
Within an hour.
within an hour, and one of them sat on you hard. The other one helped.
Yes.
That's quite a statement.
Yeah.
What do you gather from that, Tim?
I think there's a need. There's an obvious need.
Yeah.
The need to be cared for. The need to be spoken to with a purposeful love, with a purposeful blessing.
Right.
I was having that very conversation earlier today with someone who knows and works in an industry where you're most likely to hear complaints.
Okay.
But I think that is kind of the world that we've gotten used to.
Right.
Unfortunately,
Right.
that's the expectation
Right.
that is out there. And so there is just a great need to have people rise up and purposefully look out at those that surround us and speak blessing,
Right.
speak life.
Right. Knowing that more often than not, they've got the equation that you experienced. They're getting more negativity or neutrality, which is not helpful necessarily, and it's more painful. Right?
I think we could assume if we're meeting up with people at the end of a day or having a dinner or even giving someone a phone call, we could probably safely assume they've faced all of that
In that day.
negativity already to that point
Yeah.
that day. And so there's just a great need.
Yeah. It's interesting. The image that God kept giving me today was it's like we walk around with a tire pump and a nail. It's like, which one are we going to use? Are we going to stick the nail in the tire or are we going to try to inflate it? And I don't mean inflate it in the sense that we're building a false ego with each other. If you were a terrible employee at Domenico's, I don't want to go, you're fantastic at this, but that's not the point. You were good at it. The point is God has shaped every one of us and God has gifted every single one of us. And every one of us questions that, right? Don't you question every now and then, like your ability to be a mom or question your ability to be an employee at SRVCA or question your ability to be a dad or to be a pastor
Yeah.
I do. We all do. And I think assuming that is helpful. Not assuming that everybody else that looks confident is necessarily not in the same situation that we are. We all need that, right?
Right.
We all need what your professor did for you.
Right.
To recognize the grandeur of who Tim was, not who the professor wanted to make you,
Right.
who you already were that you weren't seeing, and speak life into that. I love the brevity of those two examples. That's a smaller, in a sense, it's not your life calling to work at Domenico's.
Right.
But still, when you work hard and you want to do well and treat people well, there's an attachment to that. So,
Definitely.
that's cool. Well, thank you very much. This has been really cool.
Yeah.
Anything else that I missed?
I don't think so.
I think mostly it's one thing I would just say too is that it's just those little prompts of like God kind of pushing or saying like, oh, here's something you can do.
Yeah.
Like we were talking about it and I was saying, like, some things just come easy to me because I think about it, or because I'm a creative person, so I try to think out of the box, or like, how can I help this person, or how can I do this, or
Yeah.
like, what's going to make them feel good. Um, but in a sense, like, some people will come easier, and I think it is just kind of listening to those prompts, because I don't always listen.
Yeah.
There's a lot of times where I'll say, where I'll tell you, I don't know if that's really from you, so I'm not going to do it. And then I will like have that reminder nonstop, because you missed it, you didn't do it. But there are times where I just listen and do it, and follow through, and like, okay, that was good that I did that. And you see,
Right. And sometimes you don't. Sometimes you don't know. You bless somebody and they don't even show you you've blessed them. Your professor would never know that, right?
I don't know if he's still alive.
There's my point. But there's my point.
Yeah.
There's my point. We don't know, right?
Yeah.
Our call is to walk in the breath of Christ and the Logos that spoke creation into being. And then he gives us that same breath with his Spirit to speak life into being and not curse the world with it, right?
Right.
And to become like this professor who's an unsung hero, right? He bolstered you to become a shepherd of God's church.
Yes.
And there's no idea.
Totally agree.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. And as soon as the camera stop, you're going to tell me who liked your dinner group better than mine.
I would never tell
I
them.
know you
I'd
wouldn't,
never
because you're
tell them.
nicer than me. Thanks, you guys.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right.
You're welcome.
Once again, thank you so much to Tim and Michelle for their time and heart and energy and blessing us, quite frankly, with their presence and their lives in our church. They're such important people to us. I want to close at the beginning of this new year with, again, a couple challenges in regards to this blessing and cursing. And really, it's just two different thoughts. First of all, I want you to ask someone around you that you know will tell you the truth. You know, ask someone around you that you spend time with and ask them this: when you spend time with them, are they more motivated to press on, or are they more encouraged or discouraged? Are they more desirous to press on or less? Do they want to be a better man or a better woman as a result of being with you, or do they simply want to lay down their sword because you just took the air out of them? There's the first question. I think we need to ask somebody else in our life, and maybe several people in our life, if we're a person that is bestowing favor as a habit of our life. Second of all, and this is kind of a numbers game, but I want you to count how many times a day, say for the next week or two, that you speak blessing, meaning sincerely speak blessing into those around you. And if you dare, count how many times that through your words, spoken or written, you are simply trying to get others to hear your perspective or learn them, if you will. Are you just trying to change somebody's thought? Are you just trying to get somebody to do or think what you want them to think? Or are you truly trying to bestow favor and blessing on them by having their life work, not your life within them? Have a happy new year. Realize that 2020 was Jesus's, and so is 2021. It's all the realm of Jesus, and his kingdom's moving forward. Move forward in the victory of that today, this week, and this entire year. God bless you, church.
The Lord bless you and keep you. May his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turned his face toward you and give you peace. Lord bless you and keep you. May his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turned his face towards you and give you peace.
Resplandezca su rostro y gracia en ti te mire con agrado y te dé paz. Oh, oh, oh.
Cantamos así. We're gonna declare this. May his favor be upon you and 1,000 generations, and your family, and your children, and their children, and their children. May his favor be upon you and 1,000 generations, and your family, and your children, and their children, and their children. Yeah.